Hello.
Hello,
I
Dave.
think,
I think the most
How you
appropriate
doing?
thing to say is "uh-oh."
Hello, Dave.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry I'm late.
Welcome.
Oh, it's all right, Dave. Seriously, we had a
fine.
big snowstorm out here. We got Canada pretty hard, so
Really? It might even be the same storm going around the world.
you never know.
Yeah.
So how have you
Anyway.
been, Dave?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. It's just my daughter Betty who wanted to sit next to me. Say hello, Betty.
Hi.
There we go.
Hi.
She might be here a bit longer, she might not be. I don't know. It depends. Hopefully that's okay. And I've got my other daughter who's not so keen to be here. That's Heidi.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Well, she said beforehand she wasn't keen. She's writing. Okay. Well, there she's writing on.
So we got a
laptop.
whole crowd over there.
Yeah. So Heidi's 12 and Beth is 13.
Jeez. But you can just call me Josh, Dave, just to make it easy.
Okay.
So I suppose I should probably introduce the rest and start this whole thing off. So Wendy, whenever you're ready, we can start the interview.
Hi.
So
Hi. I'm Wendy Clips. You could just call me Wendy. I've been a fan of your work for quite some time. I create custom episodes, custom stuff from your show. I make worlds, as you can see in
Nice.
the background. It's really
I
cool.
thought that was
I really love
backyard.
your work.
yeah.
Oh, very much. Nice to meet you, Windy. Windy?
Yes.
Windy. Okay. I see another person has got in their penthouse flat overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh yeah, that would be me. My name is J-Man. You can call me Jake, and I'm not quite as accomplished as a bunch of these other guys here are, but I was the one who originally shared the Roblox game that they had all created with you on Twitter, and then you liked it, and then this whole thing got started. So
Oh, yeah,
I'm
it was-
to blame.
Oh, right.
It was such a moment. I still remember vividly waking up in the morning and seeing you liking that tweet. Blew my mind. And then you following me, it made my day. It seriously made my day. And maybe later on, if it's fine with you, I wanted to kind of show what it's like currently, because I don't know if you've actually seen it in action, if that was fine with you.
No, I have to admit, I'm not a big gamer.
That's fair enough.
I'm too busy looking after these two naughty children who you've just seen. But one of them, Heidi, my 12-year-old, she's massively into the Dream SMP, who you might have heard
I
of.
don't know what it is.
Okay, yeah.
It's they're YouTubers who work or play on a Minecraft server.
Yes.
So the Dream,
Which I've
SMP
done plenty of work in myself,
server. Yeah.
as well
Me
as
too.
Simon.
Yeah, Dream is the person who sort of started it. He, I think, lives in Florida, and then they have other ones like Jack Manifold and Tommy Innit, who lives in Nottingham in England and is rebranding himself as Tom Simons. And so I know quite a lot about the Dream SMP just because Heidi's, is really into them. But I don't know much about Roblox. I know that it's a sort of a brand for computer games.
Right. Yeah. Basically, Roblox is like a platform where people can make their own games and share it with people, make their own items and share it with people and all that. And one thing that one of our friends has done is recreate that set as best as we can. And hopefully later on we can show it off.
Yeah,
But honestly, I think... Oh, yeah? Go ahead.
So I should look at all the other people. There's another person I haven't spoken to. Hi, what's your name? The person in the bottom left corner. Oh, Simon.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Hi, Dave. I'm Simon A. On social media, I go by Baby Lamb Creations. I'm a YouTuber. I also play Minecraft. I've been playing it for about, I think, almost like 9 years or so. And hence the piano, I'm also a musician. And
Oh, nice. Wow.
And he was actually able to find the exact instrument that was used, the exact type of piano that was used in the show, and he's got it. He's been making songs with that. He's been using a bunch of other stuff, too.
Cool.
yeah.
And
I'm a huge...
how many followers have you got?
Oh, I have 131,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Crikey, that's amazing. 131,000. That's far more than I've got. I've got on my YouTube channel, I've probably got, I don't know, maybe I've never even looked, probably under 10 subscribers, but then I probably only ever put about 3 videos up.
Yeah, my channel is a fraction the size of Simon's. It's like at 1,500, I think, at this point, which is certainly something. But anyway.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's like a huge honor for me to be, well, among these people and just talking to you because, you know, I grew up with Teletubbies, hence the fact that I'm wearing purple right now. So, yeah.
All right.
It must be really weird to hear people ask you and tell you, like, I grew up with you. It must make you feel really, really old to hear that.
It's very strange because it's a complete paradox because on the one hand, it happens anywhere, you know, anywhere I go in the world, and people, it's the same, you know. So I could go to India, and then Indian people go crazy about it. I go to the Middle East, you know, in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or somewhere, and they all go crazy about it. But on the other hand, no one knows who I am, and it doesn't actually make me any money at the moment.
Sad.
So I'm actually nobody because you know, it's a costume that is famous, not actually me who was inside.
Right. I remember hearing in your interview with Dave's Happy Nostalgia Show, talking about that. The first thing that you recommended young actors that were going to be doing performance work was to try and separate yourself from the costume as much as you could for that reason.
Yeah. So you saw the Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show?
Yes, I have. I've watched the entire thing. It's quite a good interview.
That's funny. Because I was in my house in England at the time, and I actually forgot I was doing it, and I remembered just like a few minutes beforehand. I was actually just about to go out. It's a beautiful, hot, sunny day. I live on the south coast of England, in England, and it was a gorgeous, hot, sunny day, and I was going to go down to the beach and have a swim and relax. And then I suddenly remembered, I was going to do that podcast thing, wasn't I? And so I quickly got ready for it. And I washed my hair, and my hair was all wet. And because it's quite long hair, and if it's not, like if I don't put a bit of product in it, it just goes horrible and frizzy. And so I put all this product in it, and then it didn't have time to sort of dry. And then I turned my camera on and did the interview. And my whole thing, when I looked, haven't watched the whole thing, but when I saw it, I was horrified because I just looked like I had this sort of lank, greasy, horrible hair. And then ever since then, so many people have told me they watched it. And it's really embarrassing. So I tried to make an effort this time. I mean, the gates have been damaged by the wind. And you can probably hear the wind howling outside the window now. But I must admit, the last 2 minutes, I was actually putting a brush in my hair to try and not look so shit as I looked in the gate.
Well, geez, it would have been fine, Dave. You could have literally want your hair gone in the other direction. You would have said, you know what, sure, fine, let it go.
Yeah.
All right, we got one more person in here. Somebody that's pretty well known. Yes.
Adam.
G'day.
Hello, Adam. How you doing?
Good. So I'm Adam. I grew up, of course. I was more or less, I watched a lot of the earlier stuff, so I was familiar with your kind of involvement in the show. I only had like 1 or 2 tapes that was all the earlier stuff. So I have a more fondness of your earlier work than some of the later stuff.
Are you talking about the second version because they sold the franchise to a Canadian company?
Oh no, the original. But I watched like the first little the series that you were mostly in the series.
The 76 episodes before they fired me.
The first original batch that was shot in I think 96.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a burgeoning special effects artist. I've actually worked. I'm working my way to actually being hired by a prop shop here in Canada. A couple places I'm just going in between. It's only the beginning of my career, but a lot of my inspiration was from the show itself, because of course a lot of it, as you know, was practical.
Yeah.
And so it kind of inspired the fact that you could really build anything and shoot anything in a practical setting, and it looks so realistic.
Yeah, it was groundbreaking on the technical side. The film,
incredibly
groundbreaking for several reasons, and I can talk to you about those if you want me to.
It'll be in our questions at some point. So what I'm going to do And this is something I wanted to try and give this as much structure as I possibly could here. So anyway,
I was asked, was it hot in the costume? And the answer is it was extremely hot in the costume.
Yeah,
and I
can
always
only imagine.
I think what on my gravestone I should have, carved into the stone. Was it hot in the costume?
That's a good one.
oh man, yeah, it would have been something. So anyway, what I wanted to do to kind of give this some format was to go one at a time, just ask one question, and then hopefully we have an answer. But it's fine if you don't want to answer any of the questions. That's perfectly fine. I just got to find my list because honestly, I don't know where the heck I put it. I suppose we could probably start with Simon because I know he has his questions written down, and then we'll work our way around from there. That's not a problem.
Okay, I'll just.
All right, Simon, you are blessed with the first question. Go, my friend.
Thank you. Hi, Dave. Again, I guess my question is. Okay, so I guess my question is now if memory serves best, you were in the Tinky Winky costume and someone else did the voice of him. Is that correct?
Yes. The story is that we had so much ambient noise on the set that we went through the script and we recorded real sound when we were making it, and we even had rehearsals. People are surprised when I tell them this because they just assume it's people going tubby bye-byes, run away, and it's all sort of improvised. But every script was written very meticulously, and we had a script read through in the dressing room every morning before going on set. And in the early days, it was like silent movies. They had a megaphone, and so, for example, the windmill sequence when
it's when you have to go look at the windmill.
Yeah. So because we could only see when the mouths were open, because our eyes were level with the mouths, and if the mouth was closed, we were literally blind. So they had to give us cues with the megaphone, just like in the old silent movie days. And someone would go, windmill 2, 3, look 2, 3, something 2, 3. I can't quite remember all the things, but it was like we actually counted, given the direction. So we'd all move in the same time and look in the same direction and what have you, because otherwise we wouldn't know, because we were blind if the mouths were closed. And so obviously all that would be coming out on the soundtrack, so they had to overdub wild track voices in post-production. And Anne Wood, who was the producer and sort of the major owner of company Ragdoll, who made an independent production company who made the show, she said to me, sorry, I'm not doing this very well. I had the third booster a couple of days ago. And,
that's fine. I had just the other day, so.
It made me more ill than when I actually had COVID.
You're doing all right.
To answer that question well, I need to sort of go slightly back in time, if that's all right. Mm-hmm. I never asked to do that show. They asked me to audition for it. And they auditioned apparently over 600 people for the role of Tinky Winky, and I got the part. And Anne Wood, who was the power, behind the whole thing, she was all extremely friendly, and when we saw each other, it was a hug. And she'd go down to London. I lived in London at the time, and she'd go down to London and stay in a very expensive hotel, and I'd go and have a meal with her in an expensive restaurant, and she asked me to write scripts and submit scripts to see whether any of them could be used, and it was all going really well. And then as we went further into shooting, I noticed that I was getting less eye contact from her, and she was becoming a little bit more cold in her manner towards me. And before she was going off to sell the show to the Japanese, flying off to Japan, and before she left, this is quite a few months into production, she said that the people in the BBC who were head of children's programming and had commissioned the Teletubbies from Ragdoll, the company she owned, didn't like my performance. And she said that Anna Hume, who's the head of children's TV at BBC Television, doesn't like your performance, and I'm fighting tooth and nail to keep you in the show. And this was a bit shocking because obviously when you're doing filming, if the director tells you you're doing well, then you keep doing what they tell you. You know, you do what they tell you, and if they say that's great, then you carry on doing what they're saying is great. So it was a massive shock to be told that the people at the BBC didn't like what I was doing. And then she went off to Japan, and the second in command of the BBC Children's Department visited us on the set. And I'd met her a couple of times before, and in the lunch break, I was there in my purple dressing gown, because we all had sort of color-coded dressing gowns. I had a purple one, Gypsy had a green one. I went over to this woman and I said, you know, I'm really sorry. In fact, I think she just came and spoke to me and talked to me. And I said, I'm really sorry that you don't like my performance, but I'm just doing what the director tells me is good. And her jaw dropped and she looked at me and she said, I'm really sorry, Dave, but I don't understand what you're talking about, because we haven't seen your performance. It's standard practice that we don't watch the show we've commissioned until there's an edited episode for us to watch. And as you know, there is no edited episode yet. So I don't understand why you're saying this. And when she said that, I realized that either she or Anne Wood, the big power at Ragdoll and the creator of the Teletubbies, was telling me that was something completely untrue. And then when we went into the sound studio to do the first post-production overdub of the wild tracks of the voices, to so they could put it over onto the visual, onto the visual side of it. I was just virtually inhaling to do the first take of my first lines in the first session, and she said, "Could you do a different voice?" And I thought, well, that's a bit, you know, that's that's a bit weird to just when you're just about to do. And I've been doing this voice for months, and they're all saying it's a great voice. You know, you sound wonderful, and suddenly, just to be told seconds before that I'm supposed to do the first wild track, to do a different voice with no time to prepare whatsoever. But I did it. I did what I was told, and I tried doing a different voice. We can finish the session. And then a few days later, I bumped into her on the set again, and she said, "Oh, by the way, sorry, we can't use your voice." And that was the first I knew. So that's the story behind why they had an American guy called Tim somebody who did the voice of Tinky Winky. And then it was all filmed on location. It was actually filmed in a corner of a field on a farm. Anyway, so where was I?
You were in the middle. You were in this. The set was built in the field in the middle of Stratford.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, on a farm. Thanks. Yeah, so it was all filmed in a corner of a field. They built the location there, and we had sort of porter cabins where we went to use as dressing rooms and as a green room, and they had the production offices in other porter cabins and a shower block for getting, you know, washing and things. And yeah, so it was all filmed only in the summer. They didn't film in the winter, and because they went over schedule, because there were so many delays before they could start filming, the last day we did was on the 1st of November 1996. That was when we wrapped, and there was going to be a big wrap party. You probably know the term wrap and wrap party, you know, in filming, when they filming it,
yes.
a wrap.
That's a wrap, yeah.
I have a wrap party, it's got WRAP. And we were all looking forward to this party because we've been working incredibly hard right the way through the summer and well into the autumn to the 1st of November. And we, you know, very long hours, starting at 6 in the morning sometimes, finishing at 7 or later in the evening, 5 days a week. So we were all very excited to just, you know, be finishing and doing this wrap party. And I came out of costume after we'd wrapped, and I got a letter from the accountant of Ragdoll. I still have the letter, and it says, although we know that you've given the role your best shot, your interpretation has not been accepted, and basically telling me I was fired. So I didn't bother going to the wrap party. I got in the car and I drove back to London.
That must have been really hard.
I'm so sorry for you.
I'm very sorry about that.
I'm going to be honest, Dave. I think personally that you did, between you and Simon's iteration of the character, I think you were better. Because I think Tinky Winky's character was supposed to be the silent, hyperactive child, I think you kind of got that a lot better than Simon did. It was more subdued. At least I thought so.
He was probably afraid of being fired as well.
Yeah.
You
Well,
never know.
After I was fired, a lot of people were afraid of being fired. But
Yeah.
the point I'm getting to is that they took on Simon Shelton, who I never met. I've met his wife. I've worked with his wife. I never met him. His wife was a singer, and I'm a stand-up comedian. You know, before I did the Teletubbies, during the Teletubbies, and ever since, I'm mainly a stand-up comedian. But I also do screen acting, and I've done writing for TV and stuff as well. But so I've done other things. You know, I've done 5 feature films altogether. Simon Shelton, when he took over as Tinky Winky, I was still in every episode. So you can notice probably that Simon Shelton was Tinky Winky.
Yeah, you could tell the costumes were different.
Yeah, you definitely won out in the end.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I was 8 foot tall with the Ariel, and Simon Shelton is the same height as Dipsy, so you can tell which shots are me. And this is the point I'm getting to in an extremely long-winded, waffling way. I was in every episode they made, even after I was fired. I was in every episode, and my name is in the credits because there was so much generic footage, mostly the end titles and the front titles.
Yeah, the front, the end, and the TV tuner events, and the starts of
The magical events.
Yeah, all that stuff was done with you.
Yeah, the windmill. So I was in every show, and I stayed. I was actually on the payroll, but only because I knew somebody in a very high place who got me on the payroll for the ones that Simon Shelton was the Tinky Winky in. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been, because Ragdoll didn't put my name in the cast list when they submitted them to the finance department. But I did get paid, but only because I fought it and I knew someone who was very powerful and had a word with someone at the head of the BBC. And then suddenly loads of money was pouring into my bank account. This happened a few years later. Simon Shelton, he was a professional dancer, so I think he was like more skilled at the choreographed bits. But he wasn't sort of an actor or a comedian personality, I don't think. Very sadly, you probably heard he was found dead in an alleyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I remember.
It sort of like shocked me when I found out about it.
Yeah, because when it happened, they weren't clear that it was him, and I spent 2 days replying to messages for people thinking I was dead.
That would have been probably really tough. Like, I haven't died yet. Like, I'm still here. Like,
That would have been really bizarre.
yeah. Oh my goodness, that was pretty good. I suppose you should probably move on to another question. Adam, let's go with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so of course, you spent a lot of time on the set, and I've spoken to some other people who worked on the show too. Like there was a camera operator. His name was Ian.
Oh yeah, I remember Ian. Yeah.
Yeah, I've spoken to Ian, and he was telling me a lot about how you guys definitely spent a lot of downtime, and it was a lot like a well-paid holiday to get to spend all that time in such a sunny field in the middle of Warwickshire. Did you spend a lot of time on set just looking around and just exploring, looking into where the prop barn was? Or did you kind of just stay in one specific spot?
Well, we did spend a lot of time, because obviously all filming, there's a lot of waiting around. And it was very beautiful countryside around there. And they had made the Ragdoll, that's the company that made the Teletubbies, you probably know, they made other TV shows beforehand. And every show they made, they learned from the experience and then took that knowledge and experience into the next series. So after the Teletubbies came in, the Night Garden. And before us, there was Tots TV, and we were just one field away from where they filmed.
Yeah, Tots TV was like in the forest in the background. Like,
that's right. Yeah. So yeah, I did wander around a bit. I used to do yoga, and I've always been a student of Aikido, the Japanese martial arts, and I used a lot of that in the character of Tinky Winky and the way Tinky Winky moved. So I would do my Aikido exercises. I'd read a book. At one point, I was reading a novel a day. We had different levels of readiness. So full readiness was like in the costume with the head on. And then the next level down was heads off, where you're in the full costume, but the head's been taken off. You had to have 2 dressers each to dress us. And then if you got a big pillow, you could lie down in your costume with a big pillow under your head to support your head, and then relax and go to sleep. We actually did go to sleep a lot in the costumes with the heads on as well. And then after that, there was the costume off. So you just go down to your underclothes with your color-coded dressing gown on, and you could hang around just wearing your dressing gown. And then
I believe there's a photo actually you put on your original website back in the day of you on set with your original, with the robe on, where you can see the windmill in its folded position for when they wouldn't shoot.
The windmill. Yeah. Well, yes, one of the dressers took that. So a lot of the time we couldn't really explore because we were in the costume at some level of dressedness in the costume. But other times, a lot of the time we were quite tired. When we first started working there, the track going across to where the location was, it wasn't even tarmac. It was just like a sort of a gravel track. You had to drive really slowly in case you punctured a tire on the sharp stones.
Right, yeah.
But there were some very interesting places around there. We stayed in a very lovely country house hotel in a village. It's an area which they call the Cotswolds, which is a sort of an area of outstanding natural beauty. And we were on the edge of the Cotswolds. And there's a very interesting fact, which is that there's a hill overlooking the location where we filmed Teletubbies called Meon Hill. And it's a very, very, obviously, as you know, the landscape is very ancient. There have been people living there for thousands and thousands of years. The Stonehenge is only, God knows how many miles away. There's another stone circle called the Rollright Stones, which is actually much closer. And Meon Hill is the site of the last witchcraft, black magic killing in Britain, recorded in Britain. And it was happened in 1950 something, and a farm worker was found murdered with a pitchfork through the chest, and frogs were pinned to the ground in various human postures around the body.
Well then,
that was not that. On a level of obscure facts, I think that one hits an 11. It's like, remember I was filming Teletubbies? Yeah, there was a hill that was not too far away, and there was a sacrifice that happened out there. It's like, woo!
It was actually overlooking. It was overlooking the location. If you just looked up, you see the hill.
Oh my god!
Yeah, because I do seem to remember a lot in the background. You could see that rolling kind of hill, where you would see a lot of the trees and upper areas.
Yeah, they were very clever with the camera angles. They kept the camera angles very deliberately low to try to make it like the point of view of a very young child, because it's made for children of babies to 3 years old upwards, or up to 3 years old, and then maybe a little bit above as well. And because of the very clever camera angles, you don't see, like, there was a big grain silo because it was on a farm.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Grain, which they never get in shot. And I've got a photograph actually where it's of me sitting in my costume, but you can see sheep grazing in the background.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, the photo from your website.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I'm waiting for the website to get the prize for the most ancient website that exists.
I discovered that website years ago back, I think around 2007 was when it really first kind of took my kick for finding what goes on.
I don't think I've updated it since then. I mean, I'm thinking of replacing the language with Egyptian hieroglyphs to make it look even more.
There you go. That would work. Holy cow.
Yeah. The most out-of-date website in the world, I think.
Well, I mean, there's tons of old out-of-date websites that exist, Dave. So you're definitely not alone in that. Anyway, let's.
Not my hot thing. But to answer your question, about the interesting sites. When in the evenings, we'd always be staying in this same old country house hotel. Dipsy didn't, because Dipsy, John, he lives in Birmingham. And that was commutable from the location. So he'd get a car, take him home every evening, and then bring him every morning. But Po, Lala, and I all lived in a country house hotel during the week. And we'd all hang out together in the evenings and go for a drive in my car, and go to pubs and have country, supper in country pubs and things. And one day I told them about the Meon Hill thing, and we were trying to find our way to go up Meon Hill and have a walk up on Meon Hill, and we couldn't find the way to get up there. It was before the days of sat nav, and we found this like very narrow lane, and we drove up this lane, and we came to a point where there was a sign saying private, no entry, but there was no gate. So we carried on driving up this lane, and we drove into the large sort of front driveway of a very, very old country house. And this huge and massive dog, it was a summer's evening, I had the window down, and this massive dog just like came shouting. It was like the devil, this sort of big black, lots of black fur, and just this sort of ball of anger and aggression came belting towards me, almost like came through the window, bit my head off. And as I was like putting the window up quickly to avoid getting attacked, in the car, this man came out the front door, and he just looked like a devil. He had a big long black beard and the wild fiery eyes that just like made us feel scared, like a sort of Charles Manson sort of character. And he just came out and shouted to get off his land, and I had to quickly do a 3-turn and just drive back away.
I'm only laughing because there was something we had done as a joke, like just before you had joined, and that reminded me so much of that. But anyway, oh man. So Wendy, you had one question. Did you want to ask that, or?
Yeah. Yeah. If you could go back and do it all again, would you? And what would you change?
Well, I would do it, and I would change getting fired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I did all the hard work and didn't get any of the glory because afterwards, the following year, I did a sort of a newspaper thing in, I suppose, the British equivalent of the National Enquirer. It's a newspaper that has actually been closed down since then, but it was called The News of the World, and it was a sort of a scandal sheet, and I did a thing in there. I just went for the money, and if I could have my time again, I wouldn't have done it, but I did do it. And because of that, I'm a renegade. I'm persona non grata. I never get invited to any of the things that they have, or I'm a complete outsider, an outcast
Really
from
bad,
the whole
honestly.
ragdoll machine.
Yeah.
Which is quite
I'm the
sad.
bad boy. I'm the illegitimate child, the one who was cast out,
Yeah.
the Lucifer.
It's so sad to hear about all that stuff going on, Dave, and like honestly, the way the show has been treated by DHX and Wildbrain has not been particularly great. We've been trying our best to try and archive it as best as we can, try and get it as good as we can do it. Me and Wendy are doing a pretty good job with that. But yeah, it's such a shame that you weren't invited. It's so frustrating. I could see how it'd be extremely
Yeah,
annoying.
as the saying goes, that's show business.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Show business, not fair business.
Yeah.
And television is a brutal business. And Dave Prowse from Star Wars, he got fired because I used to know, the guy who played Darth Vader in Star Wars.
Yes.
Yes, like the guy who actually
Yeah.
played him in costume.
In the costume, yeah. Well, he came from Bristol, which is where I come from, and he lived just along the road from where my auntie and uncle lived. So he and I used to sort of talk about the experience because he got fired from the Star Wars because he gave away some information, and he got fired from the role and he got replaced. And that's the danger of doing a costume work, is that you can be replaced. Anyone
Very
in show,
easily, which is sad.
if you're behind a mask,
Yeah.
you're replaceable.
Yeah, it's not you, it's the mask that's performing at that point, which is sad. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah,
again.
well, if I may, I wanted to say this earlier, but I personally think it was just like, I know it's like show business and all that, but I think Simon Sheldon, may rest in peace, did a great job being, but you helped him, you helped bring him to life with your performance.
Yes.
So I think on behalf of all of us here, I want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for noticing.
Oh, trust me, Dave. There's a lot of people in this community, which is surprisingly large. I've come to know that over the past couple of years, that recognize your work, and it's just are so utterly pleased to have had you work on the show. It's so, and be part of our lives, frankly. A lot of us here are way past the age that we should be enjoying this show, myself included. I mean, I'm 23 years old, so like literally still attaching myself to something that I literally watched before I was even a month old. It's weird, I know, but like it's so humbling to be a part of this and to sort of be able to do something like this and to have you humor us for God knows how long. Like,
I'd only be doing domestic work, washing up, or giving the kids a bath or something if I wasn't talking to you. It's a school day.
We're saving you from your normal life in a way.
Yeah, you're saving me
You're
from
welcome.
domestic.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, Jake, your first question.
Right. So this is about your stand-up work. So I've been understanding you've been doing it virtually for a while, including on Discord. Rest in peace to that engagement. How was that like?
Doing stand-up comedy?
Yeah.
Oh, well, stand-up comedy is a great art form to do. The highs are higher and the lows are lower than working behind a supermarket checkout. Not that I've ever done that, but I imagine the highs are higher and the lows are lower. When you're a stand-up comedian, you're only as good as your last gig. And when you're on stage, you're only as good as your last joke. But I do it because one of the reasons I do it is because it's like a way of being a traveling bum, yet getting paid for it, and it justifies your existence. You might have heard of Jack Kerouac, who was a beat writer in the Beat generation at the sort of end of the 50s, early 60s. He was an American. They had the Beat generation who came before the hippies, and he wrote a famous book called On the Road, which is about the young American youth traveling around America.
Jack Kerouac, I remember taking an entire course based off books from that.
Really?
In university a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, he wrote quite a few books. They're all pretty much like the same book over and over again in a way. And I say that in a loving way because I'm a huge fan of his, and I've read every one of his books, and I've read his very good biography written by Anne Charters. But he was a big inspiration for me when I was growing up. And so being a stand-up comedian is a way of just being a traveling bum. But you get met at the airport and driven to a nice hotel, and you work in places where other people go for pleasure. So I love doing stand-up comedy. I'll always do it. You know, when I had the Tinky Winky job, and I thought when I had that, I thought I was made and I never would have to do stand-up again, but I was very wrong. But I still carried on doing stand-up comedy. And during the whole of the filming of that, I was a regular MC at a comedy club in Bath, which is a city in the west of England. And it was on once every 2 weeks. So I think it was like every other Thursday. As soon as we wrapped on the Teletubby set, I'd quickly have a shower, get in the car, drive 80 miles to the comedy club, host the show. And because I was a regular host, I had to try and come up with new material every show. And then get back in the car at the end, drive all the way back to the hotel, get there about 2 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, and then be up again about 5:30 in the morning to get to the set ready for another day of filming. And I didn't feel tired. I was inspired and full of energy, you know, just because of the joy of doing a job I loved in the day and doing a job I loved in the evening. And every weekend I would go back to London and I would do stand-up comedy every weekend. So when I did get fired, at least I could just go back to doing what I was doing. It wasn't
right.
like
You had something to do. It wasn't just like, oh, I've got nothing to do. And of course you did manage to find a job with Jim Henson when that whole thing happened too. That was quite something.
Yeah. Well, what happened with that was that one of my dressers was a very nice guy called Ian. And Ian had previously worked in the technicals department for the Jim Henson organization. They had a big office or big workshop in Camden Town in London, and then they had another one in New York and another one in LA. And he'd been in the RAF, the Royal Air Force, the British equivalent of the USAF. And he'd worked on McDonnell Phantom fighter bombers. And he told me that the technology in the Teletubbies costumes was the same technology as in the McDonnell Douglas fighter bombers. because the Phantom fighter bomber, because then now they have what they call fly-by-wire, which is a bit misleading because it's electronic impulses going down wires that control from the joystick in the cockpit to the rudder or the ailerons or the flaps. But in those days, the joystick would be connected to wires, which would then pull the rudder one way or the other way, and it would pull the ailerons up or down. And in the Teletubbies costumes, in the hands, you can sometimes see in the shots, you can see the movement inside the mittens. And the left hand did the eyes. It was like the brakes on a bike. And so inside the mitten, you do that to blink with your left hand, and that to move the jaw up and down with your right hand. And it was done by wires going just like a brake cable on a push bike. It's up to the eyes or the mouth. And sometimes the wire would snap. And when the wire snapped, the eyes would go up. It would look really great.
That would have been really bad. So you're just in the middle of a take. It's like a perfect take, and all of a sudden, boing, it just stares straight up.
It would look like he just died.
Oh, jeez.
And this guy Ian, his job was to when that happened, he'd be standing by and he'd come in with his pliers and a bit of wire and he'd fix it, so that it all worked as quickly as possible. So because obviously filming costs thousands and thousands of dollars an hour, and that needs to get something fixed quickly. But anyway, because he'd worked for Jim Henson, after I got fired, and even though I say it myself, I was incredibly popular on the set. Everybody loved me, and I kept people laughing. I'd entertain people and keep people laughing. And in subsequent years, TV is quite a small business. When I was doing other TV shows, often someone would say, "Hey, Dave, how are you?" And I'd realise that the cameraman or a lighting guy or a sound person or somebody knew me because I'd worked with them on the Teletubbies. And if I'd been a horrible person to work with and deserved to be fired, then that wouldn't be happening. But anyway, back to the point. Ian, this dresser, he said to me, "Why don't you approach the Jim Henson organisation and see if you can get work with them?" So I did, and I wrote this letter, because in those days it was like letters, pen and paper, and and letters. And I wrote a letter to the Jim Henson Corporation in London. Ian gave me the address, and the guy who was sort of in charge of a new project they'd just been commissioned to do. Actually, sorry, that's wrong. He wasn't even in that. He was going to be, but a guy who was in charge of a lot of the stuff going on in Jim Henson, he got 2 letters drop on his desk one morning. One letter was from me saying, "Hello, I've just been doing this TV program called Teletubbies, and I played a part of this character called Tinky Winky, and blah blah blah. It was a mask. I didn't mention I'd been fired." And the other letter was from Hallmark Entertainment, an American company, commissioning a new costume for a lion called Livingston the Literacy Lion, which required a very tall male actor to have the costume built around him. So there's like a letter from a 6'3" tall guy saying he's available for that sort of work, and a letter commissioning. So
it's you put 2 and 2 together, and it's like perfect coincidence, perfect circumstances.
So they built the costume in Camden Town around me in London, but somebody in Hallmark Entertainment didn't think, hang on, if we're going to be doing the filming of this in LA, shouldn't we be using an actor who lives in LA, not an actor who lives in London?
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to get flown first to New York because we did a trade show on first class, and then got paid. I named my price, and I got paid like really good money to be in New York, and then later on to go to LA and work in LA. And we were actually in Hollywood studios, and one time in the studio next door, AC/DC were filming their live video or something. But in true tradition of TV and film, oh wow, look at that!
Yeah. I heard the whole story how this was forged in Taylor Lowborough. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well, there is quite a tie to Jim Henson and Teletubbies naturally, because if I recall correctly, the lady who built the suits, Nikki Lyons, she had worked for Jim Henson's company in the suit department.
Yeah, she had. Yeah, I'd forgotten that, and I've even forgotten her name. But yeah, Nikki Lyons had. She was a really lovely woman. The fabric came from America. We were actually delayed in filming because they had this new invention, this two-way stretch furry fabric, because other fabric could only stretch one way, but this could stretch two ways. And it was made in America, but it was several months late being delivered. So for the first few months, we were all on full salary, and they had nothing to do because we were waiting for the costumes to come.
Right.
But yeah, so anyway, I did this filming in Los Angeles, and I've never watched them. I did 2. They were doing 4 of them. And the idea was, I think the president of America at the time had said that American children weren't being taught to read enough. And so they needed to learn more about reading and reading the classics of literature. So Hallmark Entertainment filmed 4 films of children's classics, not quite seeing the irony that they were actually making films of them. It wasn't the actual book. And they were called Crayola Kids Adventures. And I did The Trojan Horse and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And there were 2 others done, which I can't remember. But by then they realized that they were spending a lot of money they didn't need to spend, flying me first class from London and putting me up in a luxury hotel and giving me the airport transfers in a stretch limo. And I also I requested a massage in my hotel room every night because wearing that lion head was extremely heavy.
Yeah,
so
I imagine.
Yeah, the experience of doing the Tinky Winky, I knew that it was going to be difficult. So I had a massage in my hotel room every night. So it was costing them a fortune. And they realised that better to just fire him and get a local LA guy to wear the costume, and that's what they did with the other 2. But I've never bothered watching those productions. I don't know whether
that's fair. I imagine I don't even imagine that Ann Wood has probably watched the entirety of the show. I know she hasn't watched the reboot. She said as such, but anyway.
She probably has.
Oh wow! I don't know.
She just doesn't want to admit it.
I didn't even know that I was. I didn't even know whether she was alive or not. But I got interviewed a couple of days ago by a journalist asking many of the same questions you're asking, and he told me that she's 84. She is alive and she's 84. But the Teletubbies made her the 2nd richest woman in Britain after the Queen. Wow. The Queen is the richest. And
that is insane.
Yeah,
sounds about right.
The worldwide sales plus the merchandise, because Ragdoll owned the rights to the merchandise. So all the merchandise and the worldwide sales and the DVDs made her the 2nd richest woman in Britain after the Queen, until J.K. Rowling popped her into 3rd position with the Harry Potter franchise.
Yeah, holy cow. That is insane. Holy cow. Whew. Lots of really interesting facts, and I can't believe you had gotten an interview like literally 2 days before. That's hilarious.
Yeah. It happens quite regularly, actually.
Anyway, I had a few questions myself. I might as well start with myself here. So one question I wanted to know, and you may not remember this, because I remember you saying in your interview with Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show that you don't remember a lot about the show, like filming. So if you don't remember this, that's perfectly fine. We have a general idea of what was the first thing that was ever shot for the show, and I think it was that intro segment for Making Flowers. If you remember that one, where Lala's out with the watering can. That was I'm pretty sure that was the first thing they ever shot. Do you remember what was the first thing that was shot inside of the dome?
I think it was quite a while before we got inside the dome. I can't, to be completely honest, I can't remember, but it probably was something like sitting at the chair and table. It was probably something like eating tubby toast or something.
I bet you was it the first segment in Ned's Bicycle where Lala goes to the toaster and then you guys have toast and the windmill interrupts you to go see the first TV event? Was it that one?
Do you know what I think it was? Now I think I'm going to change what I said, because I think, or I'm going to contradict myself, because I think it was probably sliding down a slide for the, you know when they when they do the at the end of the show, they all jump down the hole in the top.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I was wondering about that.
and I can't remember the sequence because I haven't watched it for many years. But
That's fair enough.
But when they jump down through that hole, they end up on the slide and they go down the slide. So I probably filmed just going down the slide. They probably filmed a generic shot that they were going to use a lot.
So I imagine, because actually in that segment in the first episode, before you guys go to the toaster, that's the first thing that's seen. You get a shot of the interior, and then next thing you know, you're coming down the slide with everybody going down one at a time.
That was probably because they were very late. They got very worried that they were so late in the schedule, much later than they thought they were going to be. So they would have done, prioritize a generic shot over an episode shot.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. But the only bits that weren't filmed on location near Stratford-on-Avon were filmed in BBC Television Centre, which was like the main TV studios for the BBC in London, since closed down and being converted into luxury flats, luxury apartments. But we filmed a green screen shoot of us jumping through the hole.
Oh yeah, the intro.
That was in the very, very, very earliest time. That might have been, I know it wasn't in the dome, but I think that might have been even before the location was ready. And we were actually just standing on a rostrum and jumping off. And because we had the costume on, we couldn't see where we were jumping. And the other three all refused to do it because they were worried about breaking a leg or something. And because I was regularly studying Aikido, the Japanese martial art, I had a lot more confidence at being able to fall without hurting myself, even with a big costume on. And I also, maybe just because I was more gung-ho, but I volunteered to do it first. And I took the risk of breaking my leg and did it. And once I did it, then the others followed suit. But when I got fired, when it came out in the media, there was a massive media storm in Britain. It was so big that like even the Prime Minister's residence in London issued a statement about me being fired. I was the most famous man in Britain for a week. And that was a sort of big quote that was in all the newspapers, that I took all the risks and I was the first one to jump in the costume. So the
jump into it quite literally.
Yeah, and I was the first one to do that jump, and that's what they did. That was a green screen shoot in BBC Television Centre, but everything else was filmed on location.
I believe there's actually a photo of you on a rigging suit somewhere. There was a long story, but there was a girl in early 2020 who posted on the website TikTok with a whole bunch of pictures that apparently her mother worked on the show in the earlier years. And there's a picture of you in that studio behind a blue screen in the suit without the head on, just kind of hanging there. So it's quite interesting to actually hear a little bit more about that in context.
Yeah, they did have a photographer taking loads of photos, but I don't. So I don't remember the photo. I don't have a copy of the photo, but that wouldn't surprise me that there was a photo. They did a documentary. They had a documentary crew filming the making of the Teletubbies, which I understand has been shown on TV, certainly in Britain, which I never saw it, probably because I was driving up a freeway somewhere to do a stand-up comedy gig somewhere.
I remember watching that interview when it was uploaded on YouTube multiple times. It's quite fascinating to see that whole thing be constructed from literally just nothing. And then they dug the hole, they built the whole thing up. It was quite something.
Yeah, I remember seeing it when it was just a big hole in the ground and there was a big digger, digging it, and there was all water in the bottom. And then it got left and it just filled up with water. The farmer got fed up with people after they stopped filming it. The farmer got fed up with people going to visit, trespassing on his land. And one time I had a German film crew came over from Germany, and they took me up there and paid me to do an interview. And they were going to take me for a helicopter ride over it, but then they didn't for some reason. It wasn't practical for some reason. I think they couldn't get permission. But I really thought I was going to get a helicopter ride over the location, but in the end I didn't.
Pretty sad. I imagine. I almost wonder if there's still stuff down there in that pond. Like if it wasn't just completely excavated and then was flooded.
I think they might have filled it in to make it as uninteresting as possible to people
Right.
who look at it.
Mm.
It's on
Right,
Google Earth because
as-
someone
Yeah.
sent me a picture. An Italian Teletubby fan sent me a picture of it from Google Earth, I think.
Oh yeah. What? Oh.
Send you a screenshot.
I actually did an overlay. I took both photos of it on Google Earth and one of the set at the same time, and overlaid it, and it shows you exactly what part of the set is technically now underwater and what wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that
We've been watching this stuff probably a little bit too heavily, to be honest. So yeah.
Oh,
As-
right.
Yeah, Wendy built it inside Roblox just because he could, and now it's Adam's worst nightmare just seeing that pond. He said before we had started this call that he would get nightmares where he'd just suddenly be in that area where it was completely filled in, and it was
It
very
haunted
bizarre
my
The
dreams.
existence.
water's so blue because in reality, I think the water will be a lot more brown than that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mud.
I actually remember seeing like I saw like these two drawings that someone posted online of what it would have looked like during that process of when they were like, I guess, demolishing the Teletubbies dome, after filming ended. Gotta say, it was a little bit creepy and depressing, like seeing like all that get like taken down and stuff.
Yeah, I think they left it up for quite a long time, and then that's when they demolished it in response to the mass trespassing that was going on from
I think
people.
that was around late 2001, if I believe correctly. Because
Right.
there's some footage that someone took actually of the set while they were taking it apart. That's just happened to float up on YouTube within the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Oh,
Again, we've been watching this probably way too closely. Anyway, Simon, your second question. Let's keep going here.
Well, I guess my second question would be, how do you feel about like the massive impact that the show, the franchise, the Teletubbies has had on children, not just children now, but children like us who grew up in the late '90s and 2000s who grew up with the original show?
well, I'm very happy to have been involved in something that had such a big positive impact on the world. It's a little bit sad that I didn't get paid as much money as I think I would have been paid if I'd been paid fairly. And I also feel a bit sad that I'm not sort of, I'm the outcast, because the Teletubbies got flown to New York and got given the keys to New York, and they got flown to Australia and treated like royalty in Australia. And obviously I missed out on all that. Sometimes I do stand-up comedy gigs and it's never mentioned, and people don't know it's me, and I go on stage and do my acts and come off, and no one knew anything other than I was just a stand-up comedian. Sometimes I'm doing it and someone shouts something out from the audience, like Tinky Winky or something, and other times they do use it as part of the promotion, and in those cases then I can have a whole queue of people queuing up to get selfies. In whatever country it is, it could be Copenhagen in Denmark or Croatia or anywhere I perform, really, Thailand, all sorts of places all over the world. I would like to monetize it if I could, because we all need money. I've got 2 kids and I've got an ex-wife, and she the divorce cost me a fortune, and she still likes to keep spending money. So I could do with more money than I have, especially because of the pandemic. When stand-up comedy wasn't possible to do, unless it was Zoom gigs, which are sort of not well paid. So I suppose does that answer it? I mean, I would like to. I may yet find some way of monetizing it, but also I would like to do something more significant. I'd love to be in a feature film that has a massive impact. All the feature films I've done weren't really successful films, because obviously the more you do, the more you do. But I don't know what your favorite movies are, but I think of some of my favorite films, like The Shining starring Jack Nicholson, The Godfather with Robert De Niro, many other films with Robert De Niro. Last week I watched The Wolf of Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio. You know, I'd love to have a really good role in a feature film that catches people's imagination in the same way that the Teletubbies did. But instead of it being a mask made by someone else, it's actually my face which is being looked at.
Yeah, I myself have actually been making like Ghostbusters props over the past few months, and that's such a fun thing to do. Just it costs a lot of money to get proper metal parts and everything, but it's certainly very fun. And that's one of my favorites. I also like watching Shawshank Redemption. I know it's a very basic answer. The Shawshank Redemption is a big classic amongst my household. I remember my grandfather had just randomly rented it back in the 90s. They brought it home like, oh, this will just be a nice little random film, but it turned out to be so much more than that. Of course, now it's got such a cult following, right?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, fantastic film. Well, I did an audition because in Budapest, one of the reasons I'm in Budapest, which is the capital of Hungary, is they call it the back door to Hollywood. Because all the film studios here are fully booked by Hollywood film companies. So there are loads and loads of films being made here. Even if the film or TV series doesn't actually take place in Budapest, a lot of things are still filmed here, and they use Budapest as a location, or they just use a studio inside of a studio for internal shots. I don't know whether you've seen the Netflix production of The Spy, starring Sacha Baron Cohen. It's about it's a true story about an Israeli spy. Anyway, Sacha Baron Cohen, who played Borat, he's a star. And some of that is filmed in Budapest. None of it takes place in Hungary. But I was watching it with my ex-wife, and we're thinking, oh, I know that apartment building, and oh, that's Király utca. And we're seeing bits of Budapest and something that doesn't take place in Budapest. And they even used as a location. They used a comedy club where I used to regularly perform in Budapest, and that's actually one of the locations in the Spy. So I did actually go for an audition. I auditioned for some quite big parts in feature films, and sadly I haven't got any of them. But last year I auditioned for the part of a criminal gangster in a Hollywood feature film, and I didn't get the part, but it was quite a long audition I had to do, and it involved a lot of improvising. And I'd never wanted a part as much as I wanted that part, which I didn't get. But I'd love to play a deranged, psychopathic gangster.
So think like
we could have had Tinky Winky Gangster.
That would have been
really.
funny. You walk on set with Adam's costume and just
I'd
love to do it. I sort of hope, and at other times, even as long as 10, 15 years ago, I've done auditions for TV commercials, and there's been some guy flown over from LA, and then before the audition, that you have to stand in front of the camera on the mark and sort of say a bit about yourself and say what you've done. And then when I say, oh yeah, and I was also Tinky Winky in the Teletubbies, they go, what? And it's like, wow, really? And they're all like blown away by the fact that I was Tinky Winky, and then I don't get the part.
Oh, that's too bad.
I'm just waiting for sort of the next Quentin Tarantino to sort of think, I love the Teletubbies when I was a kid. I'm going to make my next feature film, and I'm going to give that guy a role in my film.
Well, you never know. God knows Adam might have you on the phone later. You never know.
Well, I'm sending the request out to the universe, and I'm waiting for the universe to.
I hope. I'm gonna say it. Windy Clips is gonna upload this on his YouTube channel. I'm also letting Simon upload it to his 130,000 subscribers. So it's gonna. I hope that everybody here gets a whole boost from this. I really do. Especially you, Dave. You've been trying so hard.
Maybe I should do a little audition bit. Where's my handgun?
That is great.
One of those daughters of mine, I'll hit a kid on camera just to show how brutal I can be.
That is the most American thing I've ever heard. Where's my handgun? Where did it go?
Where's my sniper rifle?
Tinky Winky opens his bag and just pulls out a Tommy gun.
Anyway, Adam, your second question. Holy cow.
I have to think about that for a second. I completely lost my train of thought.
Oops.
Let's skip me and then go back to someone else for now.
All
and
right,
then
Jake,
I'll come back.
your second question.
Well, my second question is, well, I don't really know if I really have a second question at the moment. Let's skip to someone else.
Okay,
guys.
well, let's
I
keep
got-
rolling down through.
I don't got any
all right,
more either.
Yes,
All
it
right,
was
well,
cold when we came out of the costume.
I've got mine. I
all right.
just remembered. So, of course, Dave, as you were let go, which is quite sad, did you ever happen to, make something disappear from the set home with you? Any props, or did you keep any memorabilia from the show or anything?
No, I didn't, because I do sort of try to be honest and not steal. A few people did take things. One person stole a piece of telly toast and they asked me to sign it, which I did, but I resisted any temptation to steal the Teletubby toast myself. So no, I'm afraid the only thing they used to show us, give us, this was in the days of VHS cassettes, and they'd give us Rush's tapes to watch in the dressing room, so that, because this was before, I was fired before it actually got aired on TV, so we only saw it when we saw it on on internal screens, and we had a TV set with a VCR player in the dressing room, so we could watch recordings of ourselves, and we could take them back to the hotel at night, and Lala and Poe and I would sit in someone's hotel room watching the Rush's tapes, so we could see what we looked like and then try and improve on the performance. And I did take a few Rush's tapes with me when I went back, when I got fired, and they're in my attic in my house in England. And I keep meaning to try and take them out, because they were actually in my garage for years. And I was always thinking, oh God, they're probably deteriorating and I really should, try and save them. And I was always busy, when we had kids, it just, everything took over. And as you saw, Betty, my older daughter, she takes, she's special needs. And so those tapes are still in my attic in my house in England. And I've got various people hassling me trying to get them, they want to get hold of them and copy them. But my fear is that the resolution is so bad that they're probably not really usable. But on those Rush's tapes, it's me using my real voice, my Tinky Winky, me doing.
Yeah, that's quite for an archival. Actually, that was kind of funny. You mentioned that people are trying to get that to copy them and get them transferred. Because I know someone actually who has his own little production company that could have got those done for you, and the possible high quality that we could get them too. So that is always an option if you are willing.
Yes. Sorry, you cut out then. I think my Wi-Fi went, so I lost you for a few seconds then.
I have a friend of mine, his name is Cardi, who happens to do he has his own production company, and he does very high quality transfers of tapes, and he has the proper equipment for that. So if you do ever find those tapes and you would like to have someone who is reputable do that for you, I think Cardi would be more than happy, because he's quite likes his Teletubbies as well.
Yeah, so I'll have to dig them out. There's one I remember, because the voice trumpets. You remember the voice trumpets?
Yes, we do. We have an entire cult on our server based around the 6 different variants of them. We know them very well. Yeah.
Little underground shower heads.
They dug sort of deep little holes for those voice trumpets, and they would be covered over. They put like a little small manhole cover over the holes when the voice trumpet wasn't actually. I think it was probably the same voice trumpet being moved, or the same 2 voice trumpets.
Yeah, I imagine around the end of the time, we call it the main voice trumpet, was moved very often in those early shots.
Yeah. So one time we were doing a take, and somebody forgot to put the cover over the voice trumpet hole, and I was running along as Tinky Winky, and obviously you can't see where you're going, and my leg went down the hole, and if it wasn't for my martial arts training, I would have broken my leg really badly, because if you're running along in that costume and then your leg goes down a very deep hole, I mean, it's a broken, snapped femur.
It's like going down. It's like trying to go downstairs and you don't even know where the stairs are. It's just all of a sudden it's like, oh, hold on.
Down it goes, yeah. And because of my martial arts training, the Aikido training, I had the sensitivity to the instant I could feel nothing underneath my foot, just freeze and not go any further. And that's all caught on in one of these Rush's tapes, and they're saying, "Are you okay?" And I used to continue doing the voice. I used to do the voice even when we weren't filming, and that would keep the crew entertained as well. And I'd love to see that bit of footage again, but it's on.
Actually, that also segues to a secondary question that relates in that nature. Did you also happen to get any B-roll on those footage? So any joking around while on set, any of the side stuff of the actors and crew?
I think there's quite a lot of it. And I mean, I only took a few tapes, so there will somewhere there'll be loads of those tapes. I don't know what happened. They might have just got copied over or thrown away. I don't know. But there will be a lot of Rush's tapes. And also there'll be probably on the main master tapes, the U-matic that they'd have used. There'll be loads of that stuff somewhere, but I don't know what they'll do. They'll probably sell it one day and make another $50 million.
You never know. I would hope that because you're in it, you get a little bit of kickback from it.
I don't think I would, because the contract was very specific. In fact, it was all very, you'd be amazed. And it's not just the Teletubbies, so I'm not sort of criticizing Ragdoll, but so many TV shows that I've done for sort of proper big mainstream established TV companies, you'd be amazed at how amateurish and slapdash things are. So, for example, I was once playing the part of the riot policeman in a British TV program called The Bill, which was like a big primetime, twice a week TV show that went out, like a soap opera. And we were filming, doing riot squad training in an old factory in London. And when we were also having to run around and people were falling over and stuff. And so then we noticed there were like these really weird little silver balls rolling around. And it was mercury.
Oh dear.
This boy.
For those at home that don't know what mercury is, it is extremely deadly. It's like a poison. If you touch it, you pretty much are gone. So
yeah. And you can't get it out of the body. Once it goes in the body, you can't get it out of the body. And we were running around and falling over and cutting ourselves and all sorts. And there was mercury all over the floor. And that was like, a main big, sort of one of the main TV companies in the country. And that's just one example of how many times you're working on a TV production and how, how slapdash and what a fiasco things are. Is quite shocking. And on the Teletubbies, I'm just trying to remember now. Oh well, I suppose there was the trumpet, the voice trumpet hole not being covered. There was something else I was going to mention, but I'm afraid I've forgotten what it was now. But there was some other thing that didn't get done that should have been done. So I'm sorry, it's gone. Sorry about that.
Would it happen to be people sliding down the hills in the morning? Because I heard from Ian that in the morning, the hills, when it would get dewy overnight, with it being grass and hillside, that it would get quite slippery.
Oh yeah, you could slip over. Yeah, it was very easy to slip over. Yeah. And we all slipped over a few times.
Oh, fast way to get down to the dome, I guess.
They had to put extra grip on our feet. So when you look at the soles of the Teletubbies' feet, they've got those round things. Well, that was an addition because of people slipping over on the slippery grass.
Well, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, they weren't like that originally. That was added. That was an add-on after people fell over a few times.
Jeez. Very interesting. Jake, did your question return to you, or are you still?
The question is, well, there could be any questions that could return to me. I'm just trying to think of one.
If you don't remember, and I could ask the next one, and then we can move on through if that's fine with you.
Absolutely, you have the floor.
Okie doke. Okay, so one thing I wanted to know. Now, Dave, you had said not too long ago that you in costume from head to toe was 8 feet. Is it 8 feet with the antenna?
Oh, it's 8 foot. Yeah, with the aerial. Yeah.
How tall were you in comparison to the dome when it was fully constructed?
Oh, well, it was much taller than I was, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, huge. I never measured it, but and the dome was pretty big. It had to be big. Everything had to be big because we were so big. Yeah. I mean, the tubby table was huge, and like we had those stools to sit on, but they were really a long way from the tabletop level because we were so big.
Yeah, I imagine those things probably didn't last very long because they had two little legs like this that were not very thick.
No, well, it lasted as long as I was there. It lasted longer than I did. But I've remembered the slapdash thing when I was saying about how you'd be amazed at how slapdash and shambolic big blue chip TV companies can be. When we started working there, we all got given a contract. And then after a few months of working there, they said, actually, we've realized that we've made a mistake in the contracts. So please, could you give them back to us and we'll give you different contracts. So we all had to give the contract back.
That is not very typical, I'd imagine. Just like, oh, you know that contract you signed? Yeah, here's another one.
Yeah, can we have it back? But that's what it was like. We had to give different contracts, and of course we could have said, I'm sorry, but a contract is a contract, and you signed it and I've signed it. But obviously we didn't want to be high maintenance because a lot of people got fired. When I got fired, loads of people got fired. The Nunu got fired. People in the office got fired. The designer got fired, Bob Burke, who designed Monty Python's Flying Circus, and he was a co-owner of the company. He got fired. The art director got fired, and his next job was as art director on the film Titanic.
Yeah, I remember hearing that from Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. You would say that in there. That is quite fascinating. Like, it's like, okay, fine, I don't need you guys. I got to work on literally one of the biggest movies ever at the time. Yeah. You should have went with them. You might have had a good shot there.
Yeah, done Leonardo DiCaprio's job.
I mean, even if you were an extra on that, you probably would have been.
Probably not, because it was filmed in Mexico and probably the extras were paid.
Just to make sure that because I know we've already gone over our 45 minutes. I'm keeping track of the time. I apologize in advance for that, Dave. There was a few questions.
I'm supposed to be here.
So I had a few questions from our Discord server and from other fans that maybe you'd want to answer. I just need to find one of them. So there was one that was said very, very, very recently that was done by a guy called Benji or Yip Yip. He's a collector of a lot of merchandise for the show. And the fact that I've mentioned his name has probably made him extremely happy to hear. So one of them was about Andrew Davenport. What did he think of your performance as opposed to Ann Wood?
I don't know. Andrew Davenport was an extremely nice, pleasant guy, and I got on very, very well with him. But the truth is that Ann Wood was the one who wore the trousers, and Andy was sort of pretty much would go along with whatever she said.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And I certainly don't. I mean, I don't hold a grudge against anybody. I'm not the type to hold a grudge. You know, I've learned from life that, there's no point being bitter or holding grudges, and I can understand why she sacked me, because she, as she once said to me, this TV show is bigger than any of us. In fact, Andrew Davenport once said it's bigger than any of us, apart possibly from Anne. But I'd imagine that he might not even have been in favour of me being fired. I don't know. But
hard to say, really.
I probably will never know. I mean, I've never ever approached them or anything since then. I got in the car and I drove away, and I've never made any sort of overtures to go back. I'm friends with John, who played Dipsy, because he's a stand-up comedian. And sometimes, on the rare times when we're like either one that he's comparing a show and I'm an act, or I'm comparing a show and he's an act, when one comes on the stage, we do a tummy thing for old time's sake.
Give John, if you ever see John, tell him from the Teletubbies community that we all say, "Uh-oh," from all of
Okay,
us.
was it? Yeah, yeah. Well, he's a
I don't
decent
know.
guy. I mean, if you approach him, you might find you get an interview from him. He's a very nice guy.
We'll
I
have to
know
wait
that-
and see.
I
Yeah,
know
we
that
were-
Poe doesn't. Poi Fan Lee, who's a British Chinese person, she was an actress and she is an actress, and I think she made a decision she doesn't want to do any interviews ever. And Lala, Nikki Smedley, good luck.
Yeah.
I was interviewed by someone last year, and he was going to interview her, and he made contact with her, and he accidentally spelt her name wrong in an email, and she was very rude to him, and that was it. Game over. The interview never happened.
Oh
But
yeah.
trust me, Dave, there are so many people that have misspelled my last name. It's not even funny. That have like completely wrong way of spelling it. I
Yeah.
get it, and I get frustrated by it myself, so I understand. But yeah, the other question that Benji had was, how long did you guys take to film the intro? You know, outside of the blue screen area that you did.
It was at least one day. It might have been 2 days.
Okay,
Yeah,
that would seem about typical.
yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine. I don't imagine you guys did a whole lot of like retakes. Maybe like one or two.
No, we had to do it quite a few times. We had to jump on a little trampette, like a mini trampoline. That's why the
Right.
others were so scared, because you had to jump on this trampoline and then jump.
Yeah, to make it look like you actually like hop up over the hole, and of course post production.
Actually, sorry, no, we had to jump off a high rostrum onto the little trampette. That's what we had.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why they were worried, because they were worried about missing the fabric bit of the trampette and a foot going between the side. And
Yeah, that would not be fun.
That's why the others were so hesitant to do it. But I went in and did it. I took the risk and I did it.
You took the bullet, and everybody else went with you,
Yeah.
as it were. This is from a collector in Mexico named Mark Collector, and his question is, was there ever a pilot filmed for the show?
Yeah, I think they did. They made a pilot. I mean, they knew what they were doing anyway, because they were basing what they were doing on all the experience of the previous shows. But I think that they did make a pilot. But as much as I remember, I think that the whole series was commissioned because Ragdoll was so respected and had such an amazing track record with Tots TV and Rosie and Jim and Brum and the previous shows, that they were commissioned to make a whole series, because the BBC had enough confidence in them to know that what they were going to do was going to be a very highly successful show.
You would want to know exactly what you're getting yourself into before you back something, especially the BBC that kind of
Yeah.
flip-flops on what shows they help and what shows that they're just kind of leaving in the dust. I've been witness to that quite often.
Right.
Like, of course, Teletubbies was something similar, I imagine.
It probably wouldn't get made today. There's probably so many more constraints on how they spend money that probably the Teletubbies would never get made today, because they took huge risks and they did lots of very innovative things in terms of the filming of the program. Yeah, I think they did make a sort of a pilot, but I think they didn't need to in order to get the rest of the series made. I think the whole, the initial 76 episodes or whatever it was commissioned definitely, and I think it was going to be 350 episodes or 400 episodes. Can't remember.
It was supposed to be quite long, and they stopped at 365, and then they returned in 2015, which is quite something. Let me find another question here. So this is from, let me see here. This is from Neil Mouse on Twitter, a Thomas and Friends fan, from what it looks like. And he asks, what were his favorite episodes from the series, and what scenes did you enjoy the best to actually shoot and be a part of?
I enjoyed doing the ballet scene when Tinky Winky Tutu.
That was quite funny looking scene, like having you just literally dancing around in circles. Imagine it wasn't very easy. Again, you couldn't really see very well trying to dance around in circles with.
Well, I would never have been able to do that without my Aikido training.
You would need a lot of willpower to make sure that you don't just go wrong there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Teletubbies are clowns, and have you seen Charlie Chaplin?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
No,
my dad.
I
watching
haven't.
it.
Because when I was being interviewed a couple of days ago, this came up, and I asked the guy interviewing me, who was 28, and he'd never seen Charlie Chaplin or Laurel and Hardy. But Laurel and Hardy, have you seen them?
Yes.
American, yeah. Well, Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin are sort of clowns. You know, you don't have to have a red nose to be a clown, and similarly, just because like Ronald McDonald is not really a clown. Ronald McDonald is an actor wearing a clown costume. But to be a real clown, it's better to be graceful, because a fat person who is graceful and light on their feet is funnier than a fat person being heavy and clumsy. And so if you see there's at least one sequence with Laurel and Hardy where the fat one, Stan Laurel, is dancing, and he's incredibly graceful and incredibly light on his feet. And that's what makes it funny, is the fact that he's so fat, but he's very dainty and elegant. And Charlie Chaplin is the same. If you look at Charlie Chaplin, he's very, very, very light on his feet and graceful. So I tried, when I was doing Tinky Winky, to always be as light on my feet and as graceful as I possibly could be, in the hope that that would also be funny, because it was a big, fat creature. And also part of that was when when learning Aikido, the Japanese martial arts, that's they're always teaching you is to be light, because it's harder to hurt a light, and it's harder to hurt a feather than it is to hurt something that's static and easy to hit as a target. So if you're moving lightly and gracefully, you're using less energy, so you can keep going for longer, and you're also less likely to get hurt because you're not such an easy target, and you can also then attack as well because you're light and graceful and get in quickly. So I used my training as a clown, because I've done various courses learning from the highly experienced master clowns, and also from my Aikido training. I used, because both of those completely different disciplines were teaching me to be light and graceful. I really put a big focus on that when I was playing Tinky Winky.
I imagine you would have to, in case something would go wrong. Actually, one of our fans on our Discord server, his name is Richard. He works with another person in I think it's in Norway, making models and stuff of voice trumpets as a hobby. And a question that he had asked was, did you ever get hurt while you were in costume?
Yeah. I mean, luckily I avoided breaking my leg when my foot went down the voice trumpet hole, which somebody forgot to put a cover on. I think there was a scene that was being filmed inside the home hill, and I think I collided with Dipsy, and that hurt quite a lot. There were other times when I did hurt myself, but to be honest, I can't actually remember them. It was so long ago.
Yeah, I imagine it's hard to believe.
Yeah, but I do remember having a bath in my hotel room afterwards and nursing a painful leg where something had gone wrong, but I couldn't actually tell you what happened to cause it.
You just remember it's a psychological thing. It's called the negativity bias. You tend to remember the worst, or you remember the good. It is something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what hurt most was the letter telling me I was fired.
Yeah, we had heard of your reaction to that letter. It was so depressing. I imagine if I was in your shoes, I would have probably, I don't know what I would have done.
Well, you just have to walk away. It's show business. It happens all the time. People are, and you think that children's TV would be a bit more soft and friendly than adult TV, but the opposite is true, because you can sell children's TV programs all over the world more easily, partly because those characters, they're not a particular race, so they transcend race and they can be sold anywhere. In Iran they're very popular. I get Iranian people asking me for signed photos and stuff, and they're popular in China, all over the world, Kazakhstan. So you can sell the program, and because wherever there's more money to be made, there's more ruthless behavior. People are more
people are more willing to try and make more money. That's just how it is.
Exactly, especially with the merchandise as well. There can't be that many TV shows that have generated quite so much merchandise, and there's an endless supply of babies.
Right.
So if people are fans of Seinfeld or Friends or something, that even if they're obsessive, there's only so many times they're going to watch those episodes. But with the turnaround with the Teletubbies, because it's for babies from baby age upwards, there's an endless supply of audience.
Because you can literally recycle clips over and over again, which they have done. Reuse clips over and over again. The kids won't notice. Like, there's been episodes where they've taken chunks from ones, just put it, like, I think there was, I forget which episode it was. It might have been like Catching Leaves or something, where the entire thing was just reused footage, the whole thing. So I imagine if the show kept going beyond 365 episodes after they tore the place down, it would have basically been that. I wouldn't be surprised. So one last question from the community. This is from the Mega Big Teletubbies fan. He does a lot of really good work, a personal friend of mine from the UK, and he also works on extracting sound effects from the show so people like me and Simon can use them in videos just because why not, right? Yeah. So his question was, what was it like the first time you ever put on the Tinky Winky costume? What did it feel like?
It was very worrying because it took a long time to get them right because it was such an experimental thing. But the heads were incredibly heavy and they had to put various elastic things in to sort of counterbalance the weight. And we were all worried that we were just going to end up, crippled for life with injured necks from having such massive weight, especially if you're turning your head round, because then the momentum of the head is going to continue twisting your neck round. So it was a little bit worrying in the early days until they managed to modify and overcome some of those glitches in the very beginning.
Yeah, the bugbears at the start, you always would have some things that change slightly, which, I mean, even in the dome, we've noticed, some of us have noticed, that the interior of the dome, the main front area, now, like in the current state, like the final episode, there's like 5 segments with lights and buttons on it, but we've noticed in some earlier episodes that it looked different on the front.
Right.
It looked very different. We don't even know why it necessarily got changed, per se. Yeah, we notice a lot, way too much. Yeah.
It sounds like somebody who's talking about the moon landings being faked, and
yeah. But we've been kind of thinking, almost looking at those scenes in the dome and being able to identify what was shot earlier, because we know what was first there, and then there's actually been episodes where it's been mid transformation, and then obviously afterwards when they had the sponges and all that on the panel, right? Before it was just handprints that were there, what I remember. I don't even know what they were planning on doing with that, but
that's very interesting. Well, I do love all this the sort of cult side of it, where people make more of it. I mean, you probably know that at the time when it was aired, certainly in Britain, it was shown about 6 o'clock in the morning, and people who went out to rave clubs would come back from the rave and then come down from their ecstasy and LSD trips and turn the TV on and watch Teletubbies. And
Before we leave, because honestly, Dave, I want to first say how grateful we are for having you here. But there's a few things from the community that I'd love to have your input on. So for starters, I'd like to talk about me and Simon's work. Me and Simon, of course, we do Minecraft recreations of Teletubbies episodes. And Simon has also done a bunch of other stuff based off of kids' TV shows, as well as just adult TV shows, because, variety channel. He's done a lot of stuff. So we've actually been testing this out. So Simon, the musician, go ahead and play us something with your piano using authentic sound effects, my friend.
Okay. Well, this one I is usually a little, I guess, jingle that was heard whenever there's like a cloud in the sky and Teletubby Land. It goes. Sorry,
it's so perfect. It actually gives me goosebumps. Like, it's so hilarious and stuff. But I also wanted to just while Simon plays that, I'm going to show the Roblox game. This is something that me and a group of friends have been working on extremely tirelessly And we've been working on an update, of course, because the show's turning 25 this year, which is hard to believe.
Oh, is it really? God.
Yeah, it's 25 years old
Perfect
this
timing
year.
for this interview.
Yeah, perfect timing. It's hard to believe that over 25 years ago you were out in that area just filming. So crazy. But before we go, I wanted to, not only for me, but not only for us, but for you and for the world, because this is the first time a lot of people outside of our little space has actually seen this thing in motion. So I was wondering if you wouldn't mind if we gave you a little tour.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, firing it up right quick. It's already started up. I just got to make sure.
I recommend you should zoom in all the way so it's first-person view.
Oh, I'm going to.
In the meantime, I guess I can dish about this update we're working on for the game. We are planning to release it in March to coincide with the actual anniversary of the premiere of the show.
Yeah.
And here we are.
There it is.
There it is.
Oh, wow. Just like being there.
I know. It's crazy. Hold on. I just got to make sure I turn myself and start flying so I can actually get the windmill fired up. Doesn't fold over like the real prop does. Maybe we'll figure out how to do that. I'm not sure. We'll see.
You have to make it go full speed and then put it
Yeah,
back
you
to
do. But
This must have
yeah,
taken a lot of work.
a lot of work. Now free cam. So you can just have shots just casually, just taking shots wherever you'd want. So of course you got the windmill going. You even have sparkles for it, so you can make it,
It's amazing. Maybe you could put a murdered farmhand with a pitchfork. through
Oh
his-
my god.
Yeah, right.
Put some dancing
You know what?
frogs on the
We'll
background.
save that for the Halloween update.
Yeah. Oh, Reset, the guy who's built all this. So I'm so pleased by his work.
God, it's incredible. You must have put so much hard work into this.
Oh, yeah.
So much. I thank Reset so much for making this, because honestly, it's his game that started a lot of this. That started like the Discord server and all that. It really got it kicked off. And then, of course, through a series of fortunate events, here we are.
Yeah.
And like stuff does work. I mean, you can go up to the toaster, and it's not just for fun. You can actually make things work. You have all the different holes on the ground, the manholes. Hold on, fire up this one. I'm not even sure if it's sharing the audio or not. That's okay. So we can actually like rise up from the ground, and they all have their own sound clips from the show. We even have like multiple copies of all the different variants because, we pay too much attention to this stuff. There's one particular scene that was in numbers 5. It wasn't one that you had done where they had 5 of them, all 5 of them on screen at once.
Wow.
And we tried to recreate that the best we could. And then we even have the quote rare one, which was only seen like twice in the show. This one here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When I mean we have a cult, I'm not kidding. We do.
I tell you what, those doors remind me, because those doors always failed in the early. When I was there, every time the doors were supposed to open or close, they always went wrong and didn't do it, and they had to sort of keep remaking them and putting new bits in and everything. They kept on. It was almost just like we'd expect it whenever the doors were supposed to open or close. We'd expect them to fail.
And that's actually kind of funny because in the map itself, we've been having hard times actually getting it to open and close properly sometimes, which is just too funny.
Art imitates
so
life,
realistic.
I guess.
Yeah. And of course, all on the front of the panel, you can click on any of the lights here and it makes sounds. You have all the different levers which can work. And I wish that my darn sound was working. Because when I flick the 5th lever, I don't know if you remember doing this scene or not, Dave, when you were with Poe out in the dome and you were doing Hickory Dickory Dock scenes.
Oh yeah.
If you flick the lever on number 5, it does that sound effect.
Wow.
Yeah, I've even gotten the exact sounds for each of the levers so that it's all show accurate. It's beautiful. It's honestly quite stunning what we've been able to pull off. Even have
Incredible.
a custom machine. We're still working out a lot of the a lot of the little details,
Mhm.
but it's just incredible. I think the dome's a
Yeah.
little big, but that's fine. Hey, it gives a nice recreation of the landscape, and of course, it's not just about the dome. You can obviously go outside too. If I fly around, we even have rabbits that just bounce around out here. If I could find one, there's one right over here.
Probably all hiding in the sewage pipes.
Yeah. I had to pull them out with a rope and a piece of wood in the back just to get them out. Yeah. Yeah, they're just all strewn about. And there's also voice trumpets out here, too. There's even a golden voice trumpet because we could. I just got to click the toggle. There we go.
Here it comes.
Like the baby sun.
Like the baby sun, which is actually the sun.
Wow.
And this actually plays the theme song to the show. It's a mashup of the original and the reboot.
Yeah.
Again, because we could.
Clever.
It is so incredible. It was actually so good. We got Simon to join Roblox. He was hesitant to play, and then I show him this. It's like, okay, never mind.
That right there is like the only reason I play Roblox. Like nothing else.
Yeah, really.
Wow.
Like it's so amazing what Reset has managed to done, and I'm so grateful to have worked with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so, yeah.
How long did it take you to do this?
Reset, I think, has been working on it for the past 5 years. Has it been that long?
3 years.
3 years. It's been iterated quite a lot. We've not only have we created like proper models for the windows and all that before, we just had like a texture that we had pulled from a actual app program, and we got to the point we even pulled models from that same game. Back in 2009 there was an app that was called Teletubbies, my first app. It had a bunch of models and stuff, and very recently we were able to extract it all. The windmill that's seen here is actually at some point was that model. It's so unbelievable to me that it looks pretty much just like it does on the set. And I mean, you would know. You were there.
Kind of brings back memories, huh? Seeing
Yeah, it's
this.
amazing. Like a dream, like the dream of like last night I dreamt I went back to Manderley. You ever heard that? It's the first line of the novel Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and it's where she dreams she goes back to a house that she used to live in. It's absolutely amazing.
This one plays the bye-bye audio. This one here, which it does the whole tuning sound and everything, and then it plays the sound effect. And then you can obviously make it go away.
If it was Minecraft, would everything have to be square?
Pretty much. That is pretty much what I've done with mine, with mine and Simon's.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to have mods. Hold on, let me just actually change what I'm sharing here.
Yeah. Surgeon had a mods. Unfortunately, because I use Minecraft on an app, so I wasn't really blessed with the mods. But you'll be surprised. I was able to like recreate Teletubby Land with the limitations that Minecraft had.
Really? Gosh.
Right
Oh
here.
yeah.
Is this a Minecraft version?
Yes, this is without any mods. This is just purely in Minecraft.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Could I? I wanted to say this. See, this is a video I took back in September. Was me and a couple of people from a server we're in called Irwin Media. See, last year, like my friend Nostalgia Dude 1998, like on every Friday, he would premiere like every single Teletubbies VHS special, and we would have fun to chat and comment on it, and we would talk about like your work, your performance and stuff, and we just have a fun time just going back to all these specials.
Yeah, so I could shout out Nostalgia Dude in a second here, but like this has all been done inside of Minecraft, which is pretty incredible. It's mostly based off what's in the reboot, which is why you might not recognize a lot of the stuff inside here, Dave, which is fine. The most recognizable bit is the windmill in the corner.
Yeah.
And over watching those videos, which he has been making, I think, Simon, you've been doing it for 5-6 years now, making videos.
5 years,
5 years.
Last year, I celebrated my 5th anniversary last year.
Yeah. And because of that amount, because of his work, I started my channel and I started doing Minecraft recreations, and this is what I could do with the power of about 60 mods also in Minecraft.
Cool.
Of course, I have audio. Like the windmill in here does work in the map. Like it's not like green screened in. It's an actual thing that's in the map that you can visit and even modify if you want to. It's so incredible. One last thing I want to show is from Sebi, the guy from Norway that I talked about earlier. He, of course, his models and all that, he makes such beautiful images that you almost swear it's from the show. And I found this one, and I wanted to see what you think.
Very, very good. Very realistic.
I know. It's so bonkers. He has like 50 pictures or something on his DeviantArt. Some of them are obviously based off this, and he actually creates the windmill, the voice trumpet models that are in the Roblox game currently. We're still modifying them, but he's really, really into his craft, and I'm so glad to have met him. I'm just honestly so glad to have met everybody on the Discord server, which for those of you at home that actually want to, we're going to put a link to the Discord down in the description. So if you guys want to join our little community, you know, come and give us a little shout. We want to try and keep it nice and calm out here, and hopefully, you never know, you might be like one of us. You might end up creating content for a living based off of this show and create stuff like this, including.
I have the IT skills of a Neanderthal, which is why my website, which I didn't even do, is so primitive.
Myself, I am just about done with becoming an elementary school teacher, believe it or not. So I just had a course last semester where we talked about we called it dealing with kids with exceptionalities. And of course, we actually got a chance to interview somebody that was in a school from around here that was like in a room where they have a lot of kids like that. So it's something that I was actually supposed to do a work placement, my final 2 work placements for my program, and then COVID just said, no, stay home for 4 months. So it was a blessing, frankly, to meet you.
Yeah.
It was honestly such a blessing.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. But if I was a bit more IT savvy, I'd be saying, hey, how do I get to see all this and everything? But if you want to send me you've got my email address, you know, which share amongst yourselves. And if you want to send me anything, do send me things and invite me to things, allowing for the fact that I'm, you know, one level above Neanderthal.
That's perfectly fine, Dave. Again, I work with technology in the summertime. That's part of my job. So I know and I deal with kids that are dealing with technology. So I know there are some people that know way more than others, and you can't. That's why we always test things before we got through, before anything gets properly done, because I need to know.
Yeah.
Okay. It's probably a combination of being old and having smoked marijuana since I was 14, and it's reduced my cognitive ability to learn new.
Well, probably not the best idea, but
yeah, you know, I kind of wanted to ask you this earlier. It's a bit of a weird question, but it's related to Teletubbies. I noticed how like the costumes are like designed with like where their back starts are like you know, very round. Is it supposed to like be like a cushion or something when you have to like fall down or something that we don't get hurt?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think in order to sit down on that Teletubby table, they had to have a hard thing underneath us. You know, like a hard thing that would actually sit and support us on the stools at the Teletubby table. But otherwise, because they were so big and soft, they were natural breakers of impact. They were sort of the foam costume bits inside. The inside bits were huge, and then they put the skin on top. You know, it would go on as a sort of a cover, and they couldn't be washed because they were so thick. It was just like, you know, all this foam stuff. And we sweated obviously huge amounts, and after a while we smelt like people who hadn't had a bath for several years. because
Oh wow.
they had a great big huge dehumidifier the size of a porta cabin. So every night they put the costumes in the dehumidifier, so they'd be dried out overnight, but they couldn't actually dry clean them or wash them.
Oh.
So we all absolutely stank to high heaven. So we'd wear sort of like underclothes. I used to wear Aikido trousers and white cotton tops, which I've still got actually, long sleeve tops. And sometimes I think about selling, but then like I'd have to prove the provenance, or well, I mean, I suppose my word is enough, but you know, for anyone beyond that, they'd have to like try and prove the provenance that this was worn during the making of Teletubbies. But I still wear them. I should maybe stop wearing them and keep them from getting any more tatty. But the others would wear like more nylon thermal type things. I didn't want to wear nylon. I'm not a fan of nylon, so I wore cotton underneath the costume. And at lunchtime, when we came out of the costume, we'd take them off and have dressing gowns and then put clean ones on for the afternoon, because we got so sweaty. So those could be washed, the actual clothes we wore before we put the costumes on. But the actual costumes stank. And so when we'd been in the costume for a while, we stank. So every day after filming, we had to have a shower. Otherwise, we'd be walking around and we'd smell like, you know, we were Elizabethans, you know, people from medieval times or something. You never had a bath.
Yeah, I imagine when you guys are filming the segment where you were all jumping around in a puddle, that probably wasn't fun either.
No, they had to change that puddle. They had to redo it because the puddle, they were worried about health and safety, because the puddle was deeper, and then they didn't want it to be teaching children to jump into a river or canal. So they had to make the puddle obviously so shallow that it was, you know, millimeters deep. They had to redo it because they were worried about health and safety concerns.
That is so ironic when you think about it. It's
Yeah.
the entire thing has become a giant pond.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's helped or not, but there's been plenty of us that have been wondering, what's down there? Just had the morbid curiosity to go down in the hole. But anyway.
The ultimate suicide for a Teletubby fan would be to go and find it and drown yourself in the Teletubby puddle.
Oh God! Oh
Ultimate
man!
fate.
Uh-oh.
Don't actually do it.
Oh, it's right.
Maybe some of the windmill, if you record it and play it backwards, it's saying, find the location, drown yourself in the puddle. Maybe that's what it's saying
Oh my!
in the first episode.
Really?
Oh,
Plan. They all knew it. And
It was there from the beginning. It was planted in our minds. But yeah, I think, guys, we've been together long enough. But yeah, I think it's time we all say goodbye.
Yeah.
It's hard to say it. And before I do, I want to thank you again so much, Dave, for coming out here in the snowstorm. Come and visit us. Seriously.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I was actually supposed to be coming to LA this month to do an interview for Peacock Television. And in true TV tradition, they, after some Zoom meetings with the producers, they suddenly went quiet.
As they do.
Sad.
So I want to repeat stuff just so I don't forget it. It's always helpful for me. Next time you are back home in England and you happen to find those dates, we do have our person who can help you out with that, Cardi.
Okay, cheers,
Yeah.
I can send you the link to his website too, Dave, so then you have that to contact him.
Okay, thanks. I'm flying there on Wednesday, but I'm actually doing a stand-up comedy show with one of the most famous comedians in Britain, who you won't have heard of probably, but he's done the David Letterman show a few times, but he's one of the most famous TV comedians in the UK, and I'm performing with him. So I'm flying back to do a gig with him. So I'm probably going to be pretty busy. I'm only going there for a few days, then I'm coming back here. But at some point, I do need to go in that attic and try and find those tapes, the missing tapes, the Tinky Winky
missing tapes, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many people in this community that be dying to see all of the like alternate takes, essentially, of scenes that we've all grown up with for so long.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic, guys. Well, look, great to talk to you, and have a fantastic day.
Thank you. You too.
You too, Dave.
Yes,
It's a fantastic day.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully, we'll talk to you later. I hope
Okay.
we haven't
guys.
completely destroyed relations here.
Yep, play us out, Simon.
Play us out, Simon.
Oh, okay. If you want, I'll go ahead and just.
Great musicianship.
Yeah.
Playing Simon.
I did not prepare for this at all. And I just,
Oh man.
Or did I?
This was
Peter
so
did.
fun. Thank you so much.
This was extremely fun. Yeah.
yeah, just thank you
Yes,
very
guys.
much. We've enjoyed talking with you a whole lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch. Stay in touch, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Let's all keep in touch, and we'll see what comes out.
Okay. Cheers. Take care.
You too.
You too,
Bye-bye.
Dave.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
See you later.